Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasati Gaura Bhakta Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasati Gaura Bhakta Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasati Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So today is Wednesday. It is the 7th of August. It is Shravana Masa or Shridhara Masa, Sukla Paksham and the Tadiya Tithi. So there are no Vaishnava events in the calendar, which will quickly move into Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, so Lord Brahma, so after speaking about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and about the Virat Rupa and how to worship him, and after all after following Brahma's footsteps, everyone Prajapatis and everyone demigods, everyone they followed the similar process. And then later on, Brahma spoke about his self-realizations, that because he keeps the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his heart, so at any point of time, all his words never been proved false. And his mind is always in the progressive spiritual path, not in the degraded path. And his senses never got attracted to the material things. So he is always spiritually advanced and situated, transcendently situated, because he always worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Likewise, na bharati menga mrudhopalakhyate, na vaikvachinme manaso mruthagatihi, na me trishikani patinti asatpate, enne sudutkauncha vatadrito harihi. Likewise, Brahma said it to Narada. So further, in continuing his self-realization explanations to the Narada Muni, he mentions that even though about how long and how much he can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So about his understanding about the Lord. So he says that even though he is the topmost in the succession of Vedic wisdom, in the disciplic succession of Vedic wisdom, the Brahma, and he has performed all the austerities. He has gone through so many austerities. And he is the master of all the forefathers of the living entities. He is the father of all the Prajapatis. And they all worship the Brahma. And also he is perfectly practiced all the yogic mystic powers. And he is completely self-realized. Even though his position is so exalted, but still, even though he has come from the navel of Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, still he cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even though he is self-realized, but still he cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So likewise, Brahma is saying today. So we are in the Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, chapter 6, verse number 35. Soham samamnayamaya tapomayaham prajapatinam abhivanditaha patihi astaya yogam nipunam samahitaha tam nadhyagachyam yat atmasambhavaham. Soham samamnayamaya tapomayaha. So myself, the great Brahma, so Brahma is saying to Narada Muni, Soham samamnayamaya, in the chain of disciplic succession of the Vedic wisdom, samamnayamaya tapomayaha, successfully having undergone all austerities. As soon as he came out from the lotus flower, and then he has heard the two letters tapa from the Lord, and he has gone uh, gone through all the austerities. He meditated on the Lord for a very long time. Soham samamnaya tapomayah prajapatinam abhivanditah patihi. And Prajapatinam. So Daksha Prajapati, Atri, Kaddama Prajapati, likewise, all the 9 elder brothers of Narada Muni. So Prajapatinam Abhivanditah Patihi. They are all the master of all other living entities. Still those Prajapatis, they worship Abhivanditah Patihi. They worship the Brahma. Brahma is the master of all everyone in this universe. Prajapatinam Abhivanditah Patihi. Astaya Yogam. And Astaya Yogam, he has perfectly successfully practiced the mystic powers. Astaya Yogam, successfully practiced mystic powers. Nipunam Samahitaha, Nipunam is the uh, very expert. Nipunam Samahitaha and self-realized. Samahitaha. Nipunam Samahitaha, perfectly um, practiced mystic powers and he is expert in the self-realization. Asta Yogam Nipunam Samahitaha. So even though he is perfectly self-realized, tam na adhyagaccha, tam na adhyagacham, but still tam, that supreme personality of Godhead, na adhyagacham, he did not properly understood. Yat atma sambhavaha, from whom, that's from that supreme personality of Godhead, atma sambhavaha, from where Brahma has been born. Sambhavaha, he was generated. Likewise, Brahma is saying, even he could not understand the Supreme Lord properly. Tam na ajagacham. Likewise, Brahma is saying, Soham samamnaya mayaha tapomayaha prajapatinam abhivantitaha patihi asta yogam nipunam samahitaha tam na ajagacham yatatma sambhavaha. So translation for this verse. Although I am known as the great Brahma, perfect in the disciplic succession of Vedic wisdom, and although I have undergone all austerities, and I am an expert in mystic powers and self-realization, and although I am recognized as such by the great forefathers of the living entities who offer me respectful obeisances, still I cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the very source of my birth. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Can I request Usha Mataji to read the purport, please?
Yes, Hare Krishna. Brahma, the great of all living creatures within the universe, is admitting his failure to know the Supreme Lord despite his vast learning in the Vedic wisdom. Despite his austerity, penances, mystic powers, and self-realization, and despite being worshipped by the great Prajapatis, the forefathers of the living entities. So these qualifications are not sufficient to know the Supreme Lord. Brahmaji could understand the Lord to a little extent only when he was trying to serve him by the eagerness of his heart. Which is the devotional service mode. Therefore, the Lord can be known only by the sincere mood of eagerness for service, and not by any amount of material qualification as scientist or speculative philosopher, or by attainment of mystic powers. This fact is clearly corroborated in the Bhagavad Gita 18:54-55. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na sochati na kankshati shamah sarveshu bhutesu mam bhaktim labdhe param. Bhaktya mamapi janati yavan yasyasmi tattvataha tato mam tattvato gyatva visyate tadantaram. Only self-realization by attainment of the above high qualification of Vedic wisdom, austerity, etc. can help one on the path of devotional service. But failing in devotional service, one remains still imperfect. Because even in the position of self-realization, one cannot factually know the Supreme Lord. By self-realization, one qualified to become a devotee, and the devotee by service mode bhaktiya only can gradually know the personality of Godhead. One should not, however, misunderstand the import of visate enters into as a referring to me merging into the existence of the Supreme. Even in material existence, one is merged in the existence of the Lord. No materialist can dis, uh, disentangle self from matter. For the self is merged in the external energy of the Lord, as no layman can separate butter from milk. No one can extricate the merged self from matter by acquiring some material qualification. This visate by devotion, bhaktya, means to be able to participate in the association of the Lord in person. Bhakti or devotional service to the Lord means to become free from material entanglement and then to enter into the kingdom of God. Becoming one like Him, losing one's individuality is not the aim of Bhakti Yoga or of the devotee of the Lord. There are 5 types of liberation, one of which is called Sayujya Mukti, or being merged into the existence of body of the Lord. The other form of liberation maintain the individuality of the sorry yeah the of the practical soul and involve being always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The word Visate, used in the words of the Bhagavad Gita, is thus meant for the devotee who are not all at all anxious for any kind of liberation. The devotees are satisfied simply in being engaged in the service of the Lord, regardless of the situation. Lord Brahma is the first living being who directly learned the Vedic wisdom from the Lord Tene Brahma, Hridaya Adikavaye. Therefore, who can be a more learned Vedantist than Lord Brahma? He admits then that is in spite of his perfect knowledge in the Vedas, he was unable to know the glories of the Lord. Since no one can be more than Lord Brahma, how can a so-called Vedantist be perfectly cognizant of the absolute truth? The so-called Vedantist therefore cannot enter into the existence of the Lord without being trained in the matter of Bhakti Vedanta or Vedanta plus Bhakti. Vedanta means self-realization and Bhakti means realization of the personality of Godhead. To some extent, no one can know the personality of Godhead in full, but at least to a certain extent, one can know the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead by self-surrender and a devotional attitude, and by nothing else. In the Brahma Samhita also it is said, Vedesu Durlabham, or simply by study or Vedanta, one can hardly find out the existence of the personality of Godhead. But the Lord is Adurlabham Atma Bhakti, very easily available to his devotee. Srila Vyasadeva therefore was not satisfied simply with complying the Vedanta Sutras, but over and above this, by the advice of his spiritual master Narada, he compiled the importance of Vedanta by which to understand the absolute truth. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. So in this purport, Prabhupada is explaining about the Brahma's position. So because he could not understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead enough. So here, not only the Brahma, even the Lord himself, by his first incarnation as the Ananta, he could not understand completely himself. And also Krishna also tells that uh, my opulences are unlimited. I will, O Arjuna, I can only explain very few of them to you for your benefit. Likewise, Krishna also says to Arjuna. So he says that they are Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, "Hantate katayishyami divahi atma vibhotayah pradanyatah kuru shrestha nasti anto vistarasya me na asti anto vistarasya me." There is no limit for my opulences, O Arjuna. So I will explain very few of them. Likewise, the Lord Krishna says to Arjuna. And in the Bhagavatam, Nantam vidamyaham ami munyograjaste maya balasya purushasya kuto varaye gayan gunan dasadana adidevaha sheshodunapi samasya nasya param. Even with thousands of heads, when he is glorifying the opulences of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he could not complete it. So this is Sheshodinapi Samasya Nasya Param, with a thousand faces, with Ananta, Lord Ananta. Gayanti, so he is glorifying. So that is his opulences are limitless. No one can understand the Supreme Lord. So Brahma is admitting that his failure to know the Supreme Lord despite his vast learning in the Vedic wisdom. So, and Janma Ishwareswa Srivihi Edamana Madakuman Naivaharati Abhidatman Vai Twam Akinchana Gocharam Twam Akinchana Gocharam Janma Ishwarya Shruta Srivihi Edamana Madakuman Na Eva Abhida Nai. So here Kunti Devi says that one. They are not the qualifications to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Twam Akinchana Gocharam. The Supreme Lord, he is understandable for the Akinchana Gocharam, who doesn't have material attachments. Namo Akinchana Vittaya, Nibrutta Gunavruttaye, Atma Rama Shantaya, Kaivalyapate Namaha. It is another following verse from Kunti Devi. Namo Akinchana Vittaya. And he is the he is the Vittaya, he is the treasure for the who are completely freed from the material entanglement. So here, so Brahma, though he is the Lord of this universe and the master of all the Prajapatis, still, even though he performed so many austerities, still he could not understand completely. And also we see so many times Brahma's bewilderment in the Krishna's pastimes. And also he has given Brahma Samhita after that, his self-realization. So and Prabhupada mentions that all the qualifications are not sufficient to know the Supreme Lord. And Brahmaji could understand the Lord to little extent only when he was trying to serve him by the eagerness of his heart. Prada Autkancha Vata. So when he keeps the Lord in the heart and serve him, Sri Krishna Namadi na bhavet grahim and no one can understand by his own senses. Sri Krishna Namadi na bhavet grahim indriyaihi at Sri Krishna Namadi. So no one can understand by his senses. Sevon jihvadav, starting from the jihva, that is the tongue, and whenever it is engaged in the Krishna service, then Swayameva Spuratyadaha, the Lord He Himself reveals to that devotee. Sevormukehi jihvado swayameva spurchadaha. The Lord only reveals himself to the devotee when the devotee engages in the devotional service. So here Brahma has performed the austerities and he is going to engage in the duty of his creating this material universe. So he understands little extent only when he was trying to serve him by the eagerness of his heart. That is which is the devotional service mode. So therefore, the Lord can be known only by the severe mood of eagerness for service, not by any amount of material qualifications as scientist or speculative philosopher or by attainment of mystic powers. So this is not the qualifications. This is also confirmed. Sukadeva Goswami says, and Maitreya Rishi also mentions. There are so many prayers of this. So this is like Kunti Maharani Janma Ishwareswara Sri Bihi Edamana Madah Puman Naivahati Avidatum Vai Twamakinchanu Gocharam. So likewise, there are many other prayers by Sukadeva Goswami and Kardama Prajapati. Okay, so likewise, and then Prabhupada is bringing from the Bhagavad Gita about the Brahma Bhutaha Prasannatma Nasochiti Nakankshati Samah Sarveshu Bhuteshu. This is the very important. Whenever one is equal to all the living entities and he sees himself in the, it is going the Krutvadayam Jiveshu Dhatva cha Vayam Mayatmanam Sahajagat Drakshasya Chapima. And this is the statement of the Lord to Kadma Prajapati. Oh Kadma Prajapati, when you are treating all the living entities, Krutva Dayam Jiveshu, Datva Cha Vayamatmavan. So likewise, you see all the living entities in the Lord in your heart. So likewise, it goes in the circle, it will comes to you. So Lord is not far away from your heart. He is always in your heart as a super soul. So that is the realization. And Bhakta Mama Vicharati Yavana Shashmi Tatpataha. And here that can be attained through the devotional service. Then he will enter into the pastimes of Vishiteta Dhanantaram, enter in the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So devotee only can understand Tato mam tatvato jnatva tatvato. By scientifically he experience and realize, that is called self-realization. Devotee only can understand, not the mental speculator. And only self-realization by attainment of the above high qualifications of the Vedic wisdom, austerity, can help one on the path of devotional service. So this is the tapasya. नायम देहो देहवाजं दुलोके कष्टान् कामान् अर्हते विद्भुजाम्ये तपो दिव्यं पुत्रकायेन सत्वं तपो दिव्यं पुत्रकायेन सत्वं शुद्ध्यस्मात् ब्रह्म सौख्यम् अन्त्वनन्तं शुद्ध्यस्मात्. Once a person is completely cleared of the mental entanglement, he will experience that Brahma Saukyam, Tvanantam. It is unlimited. So, but falling in devotional service, failing in devotional service, one remains still imperfect, because even in that position of self-realization, one cannot factually know the Supreme Lord. So, by self-realization, one is qualified to become a devotee, and a devotee by service mode, bhakta only can gradually know the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, this is step by step, they understand the Supreme Personality of God when he is engaging in the devotional service. And one should not, however, misunderstand the import of Vishite as merging into the existence of the Supreme. So this is because the individuality is always maintained by the devotees. Salokya saristi samipya sarupya ekatmu apyuta diyamanam na gruhnanti mat sevadam janaha, because they engage in mat seva, in my devotional service. Diyamanam na gruhnanti, even though if I give the liberation to them, na gruhnanti, they don't take it, because mat sevanam janaha, they engage in the devotional service. That is Matsevaya Pritamte Salokyari Chatustayam. That is the Matsevaya Pritamte Salokyari Chatustayam. My devotional series so such a famous. So Nechayanti Sevya Purnaha Kutonyat Kaliplutam. And without doing that devotional service by their pranai, dehi, diya, vacha, they don't take to the liberation immediately. Nechayanti sevaya purnaha, completely performing the devotional service. And kuto anyat kal viplutam, kuto anyat. But why do they care for anything else, even for the Sai Mukti? So even the Sai Mukti is also part of the kuto anyat kala viplutam. They cannot retain their position for very long. And then later on, Prabhupada is explaining about the material existence. So one is as long as he is in the material, encaged by the mind, intelligence, ego, which is infected by the material entanglement. On top of that, the gross body, it is very difficult. That is the existence of the material nature. He is measured in the material existence. So one is measured in the existence of the Lord. So and no materialistic can disentangle self from matter, for the self is merged in the external energy of the Lord. So as no layman can separate butter from milk, no one can extricate the merged self from the matter by acquiring some material qualifications. Then it is not that much easy to separate oneself from the subtle body and gross body. Even though at the end of the death, one can separate the gross body, but still all the vasanas, it still carries with him, and then he will immediately get another gross body because he still wanted to experience those pains and pleasures. The karma, it is always with that living entity. So the subtle body, he carries the subtle body and enter into another material body. But here, only by performing the devotional service, one can burn the gross body, subtle body. He will attain the Swarupena Mayopejan Pasyan Swarajam Muktiti. Swarupena, his real form. And otherwise, it is not that much easy to separate the matter from the soul. This Vishate by devotion, Bhakta means to be able to participate in the association of the Lord in person. This is the Salokyadi Chatustayam. Bhakti or devotional service to the Lord means to become free from the material entanglements and then enter into the kingdom of God, into the Vaikuntha or Goloka Vrindavana based on the mood and relationship. This is the Sambandha and Prayojana, and knowing the relationship and then performing that, establishing that relationship by performing devotional service in a mood and then attaining that Prayojana, entering into the kingdom of God and there eternally serving the Lord. And losing the individuality is not the aim of Bhakti Yoga or the devotees of the Lord. This is Naikatmatami Spurhayanti Kechi Matpada Seva Abhirita Madihaha. So my devotees na ekatmatami Spurhayanti Kechin, at any time they do not desire. Matpada Seva Abhirita Madihaha. They always desire to serve me, my lotus feet. So there are 5 types of liberation. This is the out of 5, the Sai Mukti is being merged into the existence of. This is for the Mayavadis. And because they haven't got that individual relationship with the Lord, so it is also Kuto Anyat Kal Viplutam. It is not a permanent. So the other forms of the liberation maintain the individuality of the practice, soul, and involve being always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The word visite is used in the verses of Bhagavad Gita is meant for the devotees who are not at all anxious for any kind of liberation. This is Dimanam na gruhnanti mat sevanam janaha. So they are not anxious for the nechayanti sevaya punaha without completing the devotional service. They are simply satisfied being engaged in the service of the Lord, regardless of the situation. Okay, so likewise, Prabhupada is explaining in the Brahma, and even though he knows Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye, he knows all the knowledge of the Vedas, but still, here Brahma is admitting that Na Jagachim Yat Atma Sambhavaha, I could not understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What to speak of everyone else who are claiming that they are the scholars. So likewise, Prabhupada is explaining here, and then so-called Vedantists therefore cannot enter into the existence of the Lord without being trained in the matter of Bhakti Vedanta or Vedanta plus Bhakti. Vedanta means self-realization. Bhakti means self-realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to some extent. And also Prabhupada is giving from the Brahma Samhita statements that Vedeshu Durlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhaktav. So by knowing the Vedas and or simply studying the Vedas, one can hardly find out the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the Lord is Adurlabham Atma Bhaktav, who is engaging in the devotional service. He is easily available to his devotees. And also Srila Vyasadeva therefore was not satisfied simply by compiling Kim va bhagavata dharma na prayena nirupitaham. So that is the priyaha paramahamsanam tayevihi achyuta priyaha. So because he was not satisfied and then he was contemplating that I have not compiled Srimad Bhagavatam, which is direct to the Paramahamsas and to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then Narad Muni came and then he asked him, Bhavata Anudita Prayam Yasho Bhagavato Amalam. So you did not almost glorify the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, in your literature. So you start compiling all these things. Then Vyasadeva, he compiled all the Satpata. This is Satpata Sanhitam. This is Loka. He has performed Chakre Satpata Samhitam. This is Srimad Bhagavatam. So it is the absolute medium by which to understand the absolute truth. So likewise, Prabhupada is explaining, it is very beautiful verse. And here Brahma, he is not, he is admitting that he could not understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead completely. Soham samamnayamaya tapomaya prajapatinam abhivanjitah patihi asta yogam nipunam samahitah tam na jagacham yatatma sambhavaha. That is the self-realized person's words if he is speaking. I have to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Though I am chanting, though I am performing all, following the regulative principles, and still he is simply engaged. He is satisfied by simply engaging himself in the devotional service. Okay, but anyway, Lord only Swayameva Spurchadaha. Lord only reveals himself to that devotee. Okay, that is from Srila Prabhupada's purport and Bhagavatam. We shall quickly move to the Srila Prabhupada's daily letter. So today it is letter to Gaura Sundara, March 21st, 1970, Los Angeles. It is a small letter. Can I request any unallocated devotees to read the small letter, please? Dennis Srestha Mataji, would you like to read?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandapram Yashya Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. My dear Gaura Sundar, please accept my blessing. I beg you, I beg to acknowledge, receipt. Sorry. Please accept my blessing. I beg to acknowledge receipt of your letter date 3rd March 1970, and I have noted the contents. Since you have the request me so often to go to Hawaii, I must go. There is no doubt. It only remains for you to let me know when is the best time for my coming there. Of course, the mango season is best, so please inform me so I can make out my schedule and you can make all the arrangement. Do you have the picture of the Prahlad which you printed some years ago? I think they may be published in the BTG, but they have been missing. Please offer my blessing to Govinda Dasi and to all the boys and girls. There is new Navadvipa. Hope this will find you in a good health. Your ever well wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah.
Can you let me
Uh,
finish?
Hare Krishna. Prabhupada is planning to go to Hawaii, Prabhuji, and he's asking for the which time the weather is suit for him. He giving the example is mango season is the best to go, best to having. So in regard, the Prabhupada was mentioning the BTG to publish. He need the Prahlad Maharaj printing. So Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you so much, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Any points, dear devotees, you wanted to add? Okay, so that is from Prabhupada's letter. So Govinda Dasi and Gaura Sundara. So the devotee couple, they are in the new Navadvipa. It is the Hawaii. It is called new Navadvipa. And yes, Prabhupada used to go in the mango season there. So Prabhupada wanted to Gaura Sundara to make all the arrangements. Okay, that is from this Prabhupada's letter and from the announcements point of view. So today evening at 8:30 p.m. we have got the Kirtan. So devotees kindly join and then whatever the songs you wanted to sing for Krishna's pleasure and you can practice in the Kirtan. So if you just practice in the beforehand, so we can hear all the devotees. So that is upcoming event is Kirtan evening at 8:30 p.m. Okay, that's all from the event side from my side. And dear devotees, if you wanted to share anything on Krishna consciousness, if there are any events or there anything, kindly share. Hare Krishna. Okay, if there are no further updates, then we shall conclude and continue with further japa. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः अनन्तकोटि
Jai Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna, Haribol.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri